Hey, good morning, guys. It's 11:01, and I'm still seeing that the number of attendees are increasing. So, with due respect to everyone who's been waiting eagerly for some cool tips and tricks on Maya, especially work from home and stuff, we'll just take a minute to start. So, welcome everyone, and I'll be starting the webinar in 1 minute. All right, guys. I hope I'm audible to you all. And once again, welcome to the webinar on some 5 cool tricks on Maya, especially during uh, remotely when you guys are working. I know there is no much as solution which can be offered when you're working from remote places. The thing is, you need a good internet speed. We have issues when we work from home, when we do not have a good system. We have issues because most of the time, as I do, I'm busy doing household work as well as helping my family, and at the same time doing technical sessions and talking and interaction with the customers as well. But yes, we do have to do our job on daily basis, and especially when you're home, when with very few technical resources, we need some basic ideas, some basic tips which can enhance our workflow. Now, because of that, what we have done is we thought, why don't we have some one session on tips and tricks which can enhance your workflow, not only when you're working from home but also when you resume your work back in office. So these tips and tricks which I'm talking about is not exclusively for remote access and working from home. It can be used for your day-to-day life as well, but this was a time where we thought we should be doing a session, and we call it as remote access and work from home. So the first thing uh, I would like to talk about is I hope you guys can see me, right? Or you guys can hear me. Uh, it's I'm out. I'm completely audible. Cool. Avinash, give me a heads up if you can hear me.
Yes, yes, loud and clear, Samit.
Absolutely. Thank you, Avinash. Okay. All right. So situations today is that we are all at home working. We have to work, yeah, because we don't know when the lockdown is going to be open. Some places the lockdown is opened up, people are going to office, but to be safe, it's always advisable to work remotely if you have the right tech resources. I know a couple of us did not have all of these in the beginning days of the lockdown, but slowly and steadily people managed to get a decent system, managed to get internet, managed to coordinate between the team members, and now I think the work is going on smooth. In case if we do not have, we still have issues on remote access and stuff like that. Most of the customers, they've already tried this, but couple of things which even Autodesk took an initiative is, while you're working from remote, working on a remote system, like you have a simple system at home, but your big beast system is sitting in office, and you want to access the system of your office while sitting at home. So what generally do is there are a lot of solutions available in the market, where you can remotely touch the system and start working. But just to let you guys know that Nvidia has recently released a plugin. Okay, I just want to check if there is some questions. Yeah, recently released a plugin which can be found here on the Nvidia page as well, for remote desktop streaming with tools. They can, for if you guys have a GeForce GPU to accelerate your Windows remote desktop streaming, you can upgrade the drivers. The drivers is already also mentioned here, and download the patch which is available for different OS as well. And what you can do is inside Maya, when you want to use this facility. So earlier I remember Maya used to use the DirectX 11 the capabilities, the Maya viewport 2.0. But if you want to use the GSL, the capabilities, OpenGL capabilities, sorry, what you can do is you can download the patch, and you can go to the environment variables and use the commands, or change it to the OpenGL environment, and that will help you work in a much more faster way. And you can leverage the entire advantage of viewport 2.0, remotely working. When it was in the DirectX, we have heard that the people are not getting the right kind of response rate. It used to lag a lot, and they were not able to take the right benefit of viewport 2.0. But now you can do it. So if you're using tools like Maya 2020, you have the scene thing on the screen, how you can enable the OpenGL the variable. If you're using Maya 2019, you can install the 2019.3.1 update, and that's available in your Autodesk account. You can directly go there and download and start using. And if you're using 2018, if your workflow is set to 2018, all you can do is update to 2018.7, and just change your environment variable settings, and you're good to go. There is more information on this. You can go to the Autodesk knowledge page, or even if you Google saying using Maya with Windows remote desktop connection, the page will directly take you to the Autodesk knowledge, and you have all the links and available documents. You can just feel free to access that and start leveraging the benefits. Of course, the next tip is load Maya faster. Now, this is something which I was facing a lot, and I don't know whether I have mentioned this in my previous webinars as well, that I ordered for a new laptop, but then the lockdown started, and I had to live with the old hardware, which actually has a lot of issues. It's not just issues, lots of issues. So I have to live with that. So every time I used to load Maya, it used to take a lot of time to load. We all know that Maya, from version 2019 onwards, the load time is drastically faster as compared to the previous versions. But at times, uh, depending on your system capabilities and stuff, your Maya still takes time to load. It's way much better than what 2018, 2017, and 2016 used to be. But if your system is not capable of loading Maya, you still might have little sluggishness from version 19 as well. Now to do that, to make it much more faster, even if it's few seconds more, as an artist, we tend to lose our patience, right? So how can we make it faster? Now, not everyone is doing everything inside Maya. Like for example, there are modelers, there are animators, there are FX artists, and so on. Most of the time, what I'm showing you might not help everyone, but I'm pretty sure that this can be added advantage to people who are just using Maya for a specific purpose in that particular time. For example, modelers. So when I in this example, you can see when you load Maya, it's taking couple of seconds to load. Okay, and it's because it's not just loading the application, but it's also loading all the plugins associated inside Maya. Now there are a couple of plugins which loads by default, or even if you have used it in the previous scenarios, you it might be on by default the next time when you load. So you don't want all these plugins to load. So there are plugins like Bifrost, there are plugins like Mash, there are plugins like XGen, which you might not be using it right now. So for example, if somebody is a modeler, okay, and or maybe he's somebody who is just doing a texturing job, or somebody who is just doing animation, he might not need Bifrost for that point of time. He might not need XGen for that point of time, unless the character has XGen been implemented, or Mash, for example, unless the scene has a Mash setup. So every time you load Maya, why do you need these plugins to be active by default? So all you need to do is, I'm just going to share my screen, go to Windows, setting preferences, go to plugin managers, and yep, here you can see when I just these are all these plugins which are currently active. I might have switched off a couple of them, I'm not pretty sure. So all you need to do is just say by Frost, and you can switch off all these, so that make sure it does not automatically load the plugin the next time when you're switching off Maya. If you want, you can also, another heavy plugin is Mash. It's a very good tool. It can do wonders when you're doing something related to motion graphics, or when you're doing something to in creating huge massive scenes with foliages and stuff like that. It can do wonders. But if you're not doing, you don't need those plugins to be loading unnecessarily, so you can switch them off. The next one can be XGen, and I can switch them off as well. So when you, okay, some things are by default linked to the Maya software, so it will always ask whether you really want to switch it off or so. You can just feel free to say okay, and the next time when you load Maya, you can see the difference. It will be much more better. Now I have an example of Maya 2019. If you guys are using 2020, believe me, the software loading time in Maya 2020 along with all these plugins is still much more faster. So the whole idea is, people, I'm sure that a lot of you guys are still using at least one version before the current version, right? Not everyone is now using the current version. So in case if you guys are on Maya 19 or 18 or stuff like that, you will see a drastic difference. So when you play the same scene with the same Maya setup, you open it without the plugins being loaded, you can see the difference in time, which just loads within 8 seconds or so, which is quite a time difference when for a modeler or a texture who's not using Bifrost for that particular time frame, right? So that's something which we wanted to share it with you guys, and I hope a lot of you guys are already using it. But for people who are not using it, it can be of some help. All right, so my next tip is Profiler and Scene Lint tool. This is something which was there before also, but which got highlighted from version 2019. But I believe a lot of you guys are not not extensively using this or not are much aware of it. So I don't want to train, but I just want to highlight these tools so that you are aware of it. And if you want to have more in-depth knowledge of it, you can either go to the Maya Learning channel, or there are tons of resources available also. Now, what does this profiler and scene lint tool do is, imagine this scene, and we have a profiler. When you go inside the Windows animation editor, you profiler. What does profiler do is, it will give you a detailed information about what's happening in the background. So when you start recording, when you hit the recording button and hit the play button inside the viewport, everything that's happening in the background of the application, the profiler will record. So when you stop recording, you can see all these activities happened either parallelly or in sequence, like one after the other. Okay, you can go inside and see that certain activities are happening parallelly, one top of the other, which is good, which is very thin lines, and some lines are broader and like a bold ones. So these ones are not good. So you can hit the 2 or 3 button on the keyboard to identify the exact details of these tools. But you can go inside and see things which are not actually making the scenes move faster, and that you can try to make it faster. For example, the Alembic cache. In this scene, when you load the same file via an Alembic cache, you can see the playback is much more faster. So in case if you want to know what's going wrong in your scene and how can you make it much more faster, the profiler will definitely help you. The other tool is the evaluation graph, a toolkit. If you go inside the tool debug option, you'll say launch the scene lint window. Now this is exactly similar to the profiler, but it is much more clearer, right? It just gives you exact point what can make the software or the viewport run faster. For example, it says, it not only just gives you the issue but also gives you a solution. So if it says that the cache playback is on, if you switch it on, the application, the playback will be faster. So you can just click on the solution there itself and see the scene moving faster. So when you play back after the cache playback is on, it gives you a faster playback. So the whole idea is to go to the profiler and identify and see what is that thing that is making your scene move slower or the playback move slower in spite of the cache playback being on. Certain plugins, in case if you're using, might not be supported by the cache playback tool. So you can switch that off and then playback. So that's something which is really cool. If you want to learn more about the profiler tool, you can definitely go on the Maya Learning channel and see how efficiently you can use it. So that's one cool tip which we wanted to share it with you guys. The live swatch update. This I came across when I was handling a very heavy file, and I thought it's a good tool to showcase, especially when you have a scene which has tons of properties. It can be, and obviously all the properties would have textures or shaders applied to it, which means you have tons and tons of shaders. So when you go inside the shading Maya shader, okay, and see in the hypershade view, you will see that the graph, the nodes are behaving very sluggish. Like, when you try to move it, it's not moving the way you want, especially. And then on top of that, when you have when you have your hardware very slower, it will be like really difficult to work on. And that's because of the swatches being updated constantly. So what you can do is I'll just repeat this thing once again. So you can see the swatches being updated constantly, and that's slowing down your entire hypershade. So you can see there is a button, you can switch it off, that you can pause the updates of the swatches, and that will really make the hypershade nodes move or toggle very easily and smoothly. Now if you want to update any swatch, you can right click and say refresh swatch. It will give you, and it will show you what the shaders are all about. So that's one small cool tip which we wanted to talk about. Most of us are not aware of these things, and they keep when they go inside the hypershade, the nodes are very heavier, you're not able to move because the swatches keep updating. So that's a quick tip on, you can go to the refresh option of the swap off, which will pause the refresh, and you can do what you want to do. And in case if you're working on one particular shader, you can just right click on that and say refresh the swap, and it will give you what you want. So that's a cool update on the live swatch thing. I'm going to keep this sessions quite simple and shorter. I don't want to go overboard because I just wanted to give you some cool tips which you can use it in your daily activities. Now, I don't know how many of you guys are actually using the Maya bonus tool, but this came across when one of my customer asked me, like, I've heard about Maya bonus tool, but what are they? I really don't know and how to use it. I have seen it on somebody else's system, but they're not available on my system. Now, what is this? So Maya bonus tool is a plugin which you can download from the Autodesk App Store. It's freely available. All you need to go to is the Autodesk App Store. You can even search for the Maya bonus tool. You will get it, and you install it. It gets installed, and then it's readily available on the inside your application. Now, there are Maya bonus tools which was there from couple of versions. It's not that it's been released recently, but yeah, but you can see that these bonus tools are available for certain versions. It's for 2019 and 20. There are new bonus tools for 20, the 17 and below, and so on. So from version 17 onwards, these tools are available, but they're also available for certain builds. So if you have the latest ones, the older ones will definitely work on the newer ones as well. So all you need to go is go to the App Store and download them. The new tools are also readily compatible with 2019 and 2020. And there are certain new tools which has been added new inside the whole bundle. So if you want to know more about what's added in the new bundle of the bonus tools, you can go to the help page. When you open the application first time, when you launch the application first time, it will definitely take you to the ask you if you want to go to the help page. You can just scroll down and see all the contents right from the beginning till the end, what's available and what's new and what's updated. Like for example, when you go scroll through the index, you see that certain things are new. So if you want to know more about say for example the pivot tool and stuff like that, you can just click on like the new button. It will directly take you to that area, where that place where there is scripts written about that tool. So let's go to the software part and let's see how this bonus tool works. You can create a locator. If I want to create a locator for this cube, but instead of me creating a simple locator, like what we can do is we can just rotate the cube in the world space and position it in a different angle altogether, so that it's not in its own world space. You can select one of the faces and say locator at customer pivot. When you do that, it creates a locator that's hooked up to that face. You can just undo and move the locator away from that object. Just hold on. You can't see the screen. Sorry. Yeah. Hey guys, I'm so sorry. I just got a call and I got to know that the slides were not refreshing. It was still on the first frame. I think now you guys will be able to see the screen, but then I'm really sorry about this confusion. I'm going to jump back and talk about all these slides which I just spoke. So, okay, let me just go a couple of slides back. Okay, I hope my screen is visible. I think there were some refresh issues on, and I couldn't. I was not aware of what's happening. All right. The first thing I wanted to thank the what's his name. I just want to check 1 second. Prabdeep. Okay, so I was just going through the area website yesterday to get some imageries, and I found this one really cool. This image. What you can see, the tea glasses has been made by Prabdeep. He's from Delhi, I guess, and he has made this image using Arnold and Maya. I really like the image, and I used it as the welcome screen. So thanks, Prabdeep. Prabdeep, yeah, for allowing us to use the image. All right, I'm so sorry for all that confusion. I'm going to quickly rush through what I spoke about. I said that using Maya remotely in desktop connections, uh, uh, most of the people were working from home using the remote, accessing the remote desktop of the office, and using many tools. There are different tools. Nvidia recently announced or maybe released a new tool, in case if you're using the GeForce GPUs to accelerate to Windows remote desktop streaming. You can download the patch from the Nvidia site, which will allow you to use the OpenGL capabilities of the Maya Viewport 2.0. So in case if you're using Maya 2020, you can enable it by going to the environment variable and switch on the OpenGL. If you're using Maya 2019, you can install the latest patch of 2019.3.1, and which is available in your account. And you can go to environmental variable and change the settings to OpenGL. And if you're using 2018, you can again update it to 2018.7 and change the environment variable to OpenGL and use the best get the best benefit out of the Viewport 2.0. Secondly, I know it will be a repeat for most of us, but then uh, I previously said that my Maya used to load slow because of my extremely slower hardware. Okay, and so what was the solution? I was thinking about it, and then somebody suggested me that if you can switch off a couple of plugins which you're not using it. For example, when I'm doing the modeling job, I may not be using Bifrost, I may not be using XGen unless I'm doing a character with hair and all. I may not be using Mesh unless I'm doing something really Mesh related things. So in that process, all you can do is when I go inside Maya and load with all the plugins, you can see how it's taking a couple of seconds to open, because it's not just opening the application, but at the same time loading all the plugins in the background. Okay, that might take some time, and for artists like us, even a couple of seconds more is losing patience, right? So in that case, if you can go to your own Maya and go to Windows, now go to setting and preferences and go to plugin manager. I just did this couple of minutes back, thinking that the screen was visible to all of you guys, but unfortunately no. I'm doing this once again. If I can just type by Frost and and yes, you can see all of these were switched off uh, previously, but now you can see you can switch it on or switch it off, and it does not load automatically. At the same time, I can go and select Mesh and switch off the Mesh. Currently it's off because I did that a couple of seconds back. And if you want to switch off XGen, you can do that as well. For those who are just doing modeling and not worried about the look and development lighting, you can also switch off Arnold uh, plugin, which again takes couple of seconds, a fraction of seconds to load the load. So that's, but Arnold being the default renderer from 2020, it's not advisable. I mean, like it's up to you. If you're not using it because you're just doing the modeling part, why do you need it? So you can go to, you don't have to type Arnold. You have to say M to A. That's the Arnold, and you can switch this off. I'm not going to do that because I constantly use Arnold in all my presentation. So that will make the application load faster than expected. So if you can see, when I play the another window which has all the plugins switched off or deselected, you can see it loads much more faster than your normal application with all these plugins loaded. So this is case specific. It's not that you have to switch it off always, and only when you're doing modeling and you're not using the mesh network, when you're not using the Bifrost or maybe XGen, you can switch it off. Your application will load faster. And the day you feel that you're going to use it, obviously while working, you're going to switch it on and start working, and then it's that's just the normal way you work. Another thing is a profiler and the scene lint tool, which is very unique and the best thing to have. But I have seen that not everyone uses this or are aware of this tool. This is basically enables you to understand what's happening in the background when you play an animation, and it also lets you know how each and every tool is working or functioning in the background on a particular scene. Okay, so you can identify that. So you can just go to Windows, and you can go to the profiler tool, which allows you to see all what's happening in the background in the core of the software. So all you need to do is, when you go inside and say start recording, and you can close this off and just hit the play button and allow the process to happen. So there can be a lot of processes in the background, like skinning, bones, particles, everything. So when you stop recording and actually go and see, these are all the things which actually are working in the background, either parallelly or in sequence. So things which you can zoom in and see are the thin lines, which means all the processes are happening parallelly, which is good. And all the long dark lines or the thick ones are not good because they are happening one after the other, and that's something which is taking time. So if you hit the 3 and 2 button on your keyboard, you can see it frame by frame. Okay, all these processes, and you can also see the name and understand which tool is not functioning proper or it's taking time to evaluate and so on. Now, to make it much more faster, like for example, in this scene, I can delete the boss scene and I can use an Alembic cache. And because it was mentioned in the profile that it was the boss file which was taking time. So because of the Alembic cache, I replaced it with the Alembic cache. Now the scene is playing much more faster. Of course, remember that we have still not used the cache playback. Now there is another tool which you can see when you go in the evaluation toolkit. When you open the debug tool, launch the scene lint window. Now this is much more simpler to understand because it will give you a clear idea about just what's going wrong or what can be done to make the scenes much more faster. For example, in this scene, it's saying that caching is disabled. So it not just says, but it can also give you solution there itself. So I can click on the cache option on there and there itself, and you can see the blue bar running in the bottom of the time slider, which means the caching is active. I can see apply to all selections, anything that is going wrong, fix it for me, unless the software cannot fix it because it's in your hand. And you can play and see the scene has much more faster playback now as compared to the previous one. So this is a very good and handy tool when it comes to understanding what your scene is going through in the background, and if there is any plugin or any tool which is slowing down your process, you can either disable it and have a playback scene which will actually make your workflow much more faster. So these kind of tips will definitely help an animator, especially when they want to have a look at their scene in real time at that time when they feel that the real-time playback is not happening in spite of the cache button being on. So what's going on? You can go to the profiler and see things which are not supported in the cache for the cache playback. You can switch them off and just have a look at your animation preview, which definitely work well for you. All right, live swatch is something which I figured out when I was using a heavy scene, and a scene which has too many objects, too many properties, and too many uh, textures and shaders. All right. So when you have too many shaders and textures, it's obviously it's obvious that the hyper shade will take some time to load, right? So in this case, you can see my nodes are becoming sluggish and I'm not able to move it. And these are still very simple nodes. I don't have much, but you can see the shaders, the amount of shaders which is present because the scene is heavy. Now what's happening is the swipes are being updated, and that's what is making the entire interface slower. So you can go and switch off the auto update of these swaps. Okay. And when you do that, you can see how smoothly your hypershade nodes will move, and that's much more relaxing, right? And it's good if you also have a lower system. If you want to refresh a particular swatch, you can easily do it without any without any worry. So a very simple tool, but works well, because if your system is absolutely slow, the shading networks will really be sluggish. And in case if you have too many shaders, it keeps updating. You can just pause the swatches. You don't need it. You just work on one particular shader, and when when you're done, you want to refresh it, right click and refresh it, you're ready to go. So that's going to bring your performance much more faster than what it used to be. All right, the next and I think the last one is the Maya bonus tools. I don't know how many of you guys have used the bonus tools, but this is something which is really cool. And this came in my mind when somebody just asked me randomly that what is this bonus tool which I've seen on somebody else's system, but it's not available on my system. So Maya bonus tool is a plugin which you can download from the Autodesk App Store. Okay, so if you want to have some more plugins being installed so that your workflow becomes much more faster, and it's basically like, instead of you writing simpler tools, there are a couple of tools which are already available in the App Store. All you need to do is download and start using them. It's available since 2017 onwards. So anyone who is using Maya 2017 and above can download the bonus tool and use it. Um, After that, there has been a lot of enhancement on the bonus tool as well. There has been a lot of fixes. There has been a lot of new tools which has been written in inside the bonus tool, and which has been constantly been updated on the Autodesk App Store. Now you can see it's available for 2019 and 2020 both. Yeah, 2019, 2020 both. If anyone who's using the latest version can use the older tools as well, but for 2019 and 2020, you have a certain installer which you can download it from the App Store and start using it. What next is, there are a couple of enhancements in the latest build of the bonus tools, which was got released a couple of months back in 2019 and 2020. So what happens is, when you install this tool, and for the first time when you open Maya, it will take you to the help file, and you can just scroll and go through, have an overview of all the tools which are available inside the Maya bonus tool. There are tons and tons of that. You can just slowly explore them. And if you want to see what's new, what was new, if you already are aware of the bonus tools and if you want to see what's new in 2019 and 20, you can just scroll through this. In the index page, you'll understand what's new and what has been updated, because certain tools were already there but has been updated. So it's a good time to go and check. If you click on that new icon, it will take you to that particular page and have more descriptions about what is that tool and how can you use that tool. So if you go in the application, you click on the Maya bonus tool on the taskbar, and you have a couple of things. All the green ones, if you know, are the new ones. So you don't have to search by name or something like that or remember them. If you see them in green, it's new. So you can have a locator or pivot connected to it, but let's move this box in uh, in its world space and have a locator on one of these faces. Okay, so you can say create locator, a custom pivot axis. You can see there's a locator which is snapped to that axis of that face. You can undo it. You move that locator outside and have the locator move in its own world space, and still it will be it you can still be able to move, rotate, or scale the object in its own local space. It's good to link it to some other object involved. You also have a modify tab, and you can see there are a lot of new tools in the modify tab. What we can do is let's load some couple of elements in the scene to use these modified. So there are a couple of them like move selected to camera, proportional placements, and stuff like that. So if you have certain objects in your scene, you can select all of them like how you do, and when you select all of them either in the outliner or on the viewport, you can move all of them together, and at the same time you can also scale all of them together. But what's happening is they're all happening in its own local world space. So if you want to proportionally do some placement changes, what you can do is go to placement tool, the proportional placement tool, which will add a grid, which will add a bounding box around all these four objects. You can see the grid has been applied, and you can move the corners of the grid to proportionally move objects depending on where they are. So if the grid is closer to the torus and the prism, it will move that. And you can also proportionally move all of them together or rotate all of them together and change the axis or the orientation, and proportionally shift things. This is very good if you have objects like buildings or smaller huts and something which is in pattern, and you want to spread it across proportionally. It's a very easy, handy tool. And even if you delete those grid, it will not have a history or go back to zero. If you want to go on the outliner, check it, it's absolutely clean. So it's always good to also can be used as a placement tool. You have a stack align object, which is cool. I really liked it. If you want to select individual objects, like select 1, 2, 3, and 4 in sequence, you can just stack them all in y-axis or x-axis or whatever. So depending on how you select, depending on which is the last selected, it will stack on one top of the other. It can be in z-axis, y-axis, or whatever. So instead of you going and placing objects on one top of the other, this is a very cool, handy tool to stack things on one top of the other. You can just also select individual ones and stack on top of this, and so on. It's the video is self-explanatory on what all can you do. It's not necessary that you have to stack it on top of each other. You can just undo all of them and select all. Depending on which is selected the last, okay, it will align objects in X, or you can change the alignment to a different orientation. So I can select the world space and say align in Z, all along in Z. So because the cube was selected last, it will be the last one to get selected or aligned, and so on. So a pretty easy tool. You can also align them in proportional distance. It's not necessary that it has to be in the way you guys have placed or something like that. You also have another way. Let's just undo everything, and you have an offset transformation. So how does it work is basically you can select all of them or some in particular and offset in scale or rotate or anything. So for example, in this situation, we just want to translate all of them in maybe 10 10 10 in plus, 10 10 10 in minus, or whatever. So you can do this very easily, or you want to offset the rotation, or you want to offset the scaling. It can be done at very ease. So you don't have to worry about doing it all of them together. So you can see when you see their parameters, their scaling, it's all 0 now. But if you want to scale it in either any one of the axes, for example, it's only y-axis, you can keep clicking them and it goes on incrementally. So it's a very nice way of having an incremental movement or a constant movement. For example, in this, you want to scale it relatively, it's happening like that, or in the absolute way. So you just keep giving values, and it can be relative or absolute, just up to us how do you want to do it. You also have a randomize tool. So you have a basic and an advanced. So let's say you have selected an advanced randomized tool, and you have components where you want them to translate or move or in its own axis or multiple axes in a uniform way or whatever. All you need to do is just select these cubes and select all of them, and say you want to select scale, rotate, or move, whatever. Just select on scaling, give some propose some values to it, and keep random clicking on that random scale, and it will move. And then when you're happy with a value or a look of the object, you can just pause it there. Not only scaling, you can also do it with rotation, you can also do it with position, and so on. I mean, it's a tool which can be explored. You guys have to just apply this tool to any object, understand how it works, and then think on how and where can you implement this. So these kind of things can be used for can be also achieved using mesh, but there are also like simple plugins. If you don't want to add a mesh network but want to do it this way, you can do it. Mesh is much more automized, like you can animate them and so on. This is a different way of working. If you want to place objects and then don't want to use mesh, really, this is something which is much more simpler and easier to use. So even if you want to want to work on the transformation, like for example, if you select this and you want to scale it to X amount of units. Okay, so for example, you select this and you go to the attributes editor, um, or maybe the bounding box scaling. Okay, we're not touching that currently. uh, we'll just go and select that you want to scale it from the top or from the bottom, like maximum and minimum of that y-axis. Okay, you can go to the front view or the side view. You can see these are the check boxes, like 1 2 3 4 5 6. These are 6 units. Okay, and if you want to make it scale it to exactly 6 unit, it will just randomly scale it in world space, which is not exactly 6 unit. So if you use this bounding box and say that you want to have it proportionally scaled it to 6 units, you can see now when you calculate the grid, it's exactly 6. And the attribute editor, what you can see is 3.023, which means if you want to exactly work with values and snap to the grids and its values, and this is the bounding box scale is extremely useful in this case. So it's something which can be very useful when you're working on objects which has to be scale specific or unit specific. uh, you have another display option also, like the display bonus tool. So all you can do is you have these snap tools and all these. This is simpler. Basically, most of the time your overlay attributes gets just switched off. For some reason you're not able to see what does that particular tool do. So if you want to enable the pop-up help bar from the display option here, you can do that. So in case if it's disappeared, the pop-up menu gets disappeared. If you click on this enable pop-up, it will come back again. So that's one nice thing which I like. There's one more thing called as the scene annotation. For example, I finished my work for today and I'm going to work on this file next week. So there's a week of gap, and I want to know from where should I start with next time when I log into this file. I can just write a note saying that I have finished till here and I want to continue from here. So this is like my custom notes. I can add and save the file. When you save the file, it gets saved along with this file. Okay, so maybe after a week's vacation or after 1 month's vacation, when I open the file again, what you get is the window which pops up in front of your face and says that, dude, this is where you have to start from, or this is where you have left. So scene annotation is something which is really cool. If you want to leave a message to another artist who will be working on this file, you can leave that message also. That's a certain thing. There's one last enhancement on modeling which I'm going to talk about is, for example, there is flatten components, basic and advanced. For example, let's say advanced. When you select some points and say flatten it, it just flattens it. And when you want to move that, it moves along with the object. But the only worry about this is if you ever delete this handle, it will reset back because it keeps the history on. So if you permanently want to flatten it, select that and say flatten the component basic. So when you use the basic, it really doesn't care to keep the history on. There is no handles and such. All you can do is just flatten the object. There are various advantages to this also. Like for example, we'll see another shot where we'll take a sphere and flatten the object. Maybe you just want to make it like a like an egg shape, oval. You select the faces or the vertices. Let's say, for example, I'd select the top one and select the complete series of the vertices, and you can say flatten component basic. So it just flattens it and creates a flat surface on the top. Now it really looks okay. It can be done anyways, but let me select the face and expand the face selection. And when you do this flatten here, you can see it just flattens that particular area and gives me kind of a engineering object kind of a look, like a machine part or something like that. I can do the same. I can loop, select the edge, loop, and flatten it one more time and create something like this. So you can keep doing this to an object again and again and again. And maybe if you have to create something like an engineering object, or it can be anything, like that completely depends on what you want to do. So similarly, I'll select the flatten the faces from here, select the loop, and the same bonus tool can also be accessed through right clicking and going to the bonus tool, and the same thing will be applied to that object. So it's a very easy and handy way when you're doing modeling. For certain tools like this, for certain workflow like this, you might have created extrude and bevel and gone back to scaling and manipulating all these things where you don't need to do all that. With this, you can just quickly do that. Of course, just the limitation would be not having more parameters to it. The curved tube mesh is also enhanced. Like you can create quickly a ribbon or a tube mesh, depending on what you want. Now these also has its parameters. So if you want to add some more dimensions, add some more curves, add some more segments, you can very easily do it. Earlier it was a linear pass. No matter how narrow or how broader you want to do, you can very easily create something using the bonus tool. All right, so that's something which was very quick, uh, quick 5 tips on Maya. Some couple of things might be, you guys might be already aware of, but couple of things which I thought would be very good to share it with people who are not aware of things. So just to reiterate, what we saw was, if you're working remotely and you want to access we have the access to the OpenGL of parameters of the Maya Viewport 2.0. You can download the Nvidia patch and have leverage the benefits of it. The details of it is already available in the Autodesk knowledge. You can use the profiler, very good tool. You can use the pausing of the hyper shade, the swatches and the hyper shade, which will allow your nodes to move freely. And the bonus tool, of course, very handy. A lot of plugins which you really don't have to buy or download from the net. These are already available by Autodesk and tested. It works absolutely fine. And the advantage of using the bonus tool is, if you have modeled it on one machine and you want to transfer the model to another machine for the texturing artist or something like that, you generally know that the tools, the plugins has to be there or installed on the other machines also. So this becomes much more handy. So in case if it's not a big tool or a very important plugin you need to buy, you can depend on this bonus tool and try to take the benefit out of it. So with that, I would keep it short as I promised, And in case if you have any questions, please feel free to put it on the dialog box. You have to change display settings from the preference. Yes, Harsh, you have to change the display settings. It's not just that you have to install that patch and all. You go to display setting and then use it. But if you're using this is handy when you're using the remote systems, not when you're working on one system. Obviously, you can just go and change the display system when you're working currently on that system. But in case if you're working remotely, like your hardware is in the office and you're sitting on with a very low end hard laptop or something like that and touching that hardware, that's when it's going to be handy for you. Okay, I'm keeping it open for Q&A, but at the same time, there will be poll questions flashing on your screen. Please feel free to, or I would recommend everyone to fill in the poll questions. That would really help us enhance or come up with some new ideas or better way of having uh, the upcoming webinars. So yes, meanwhile, I'll keep it open for people to ask questions. If I'm unable to ask certain questions, if it's too technical or beyond my limit, or I may need to go back to the development, I will come back to you on that. And I'm extremely sorry about the first few minutes of the presentation which just got blank. I think the telecast didn't get refreshed. And meanwhile, well, let me just see if I have some other questions already. All right, the previous ones are just and once again, a big thank to Devjit for, I'm using your image as the default screen for today's presentation. If you are there today attending this webinar, just ping me. I would like to say a personal thank to you. Thanks, Varun. Thanks, Gunjan. Thank you, Sri Krishna. Thank you, Sharat. All right, I don't see much questions today. Good, Sharan. Thank you so much. Thank you, Debbie. By the way, yes, we do have this recordings. We will have the recording of this webinar today. A lot of people have asked, can we get the webinar recordings? Yes, I will share the webinar links to all these attendees, and in case if you have missed it or the audio was a problem or any technical glitches, at least you have the recordings to have a look at it. And any tool, so Varun, do you has any tips on how beginners can improve? Varun, I mean, these tips can be good for freshers as well as the advanced users. Uh, it's very simple. They're very simple. It's on how to use it. So yeah, but then there are lots of other tips also for beginners. I don't know what can I propose now, but let's see if I have something in mind, and if I come up with something for beginners, I will definitely like to shoot it. Thanks, Abdul. Abhishek, thank you. Yes, and also in case if you want to know something more about the remote working the thing, you can go to the Autodesk knowledge page where you have all the resources and links. It's all mentioned there. Also about the profilers, if you can go to the Maya Learning channel, there are detailed sessions on profilers, how you can use it. Please visit that and understand more about it. Thanks, Raj. All right, I think we are on the last poll or something. Yep, this is what I wanted. I wanted to know if you guys wanted to know more about the other tools as well, like similar tools on Arnold and 3ds Max. I would be, yes, 3ds Max, Abhishek, I hear that, and we will be definitely looking towards it. Okay, I don't have the dates with me, but hold on for the next webinar on design visualization. Uh, Me and my colleague from Singapore, Siddharth, we are working on getting a, a power user from London who's going to present 3ds Max and Arnold together. It's still not confirmed 100%, but we are very aggressively working towards it. It might happen somewhere around the first week of July. You all should get an invite. This is design visualization with 3ds Max and Arnold. The topic name is still yet not confirmed, but 3ds Max and Arnold is the key tool which will be showcased that day. Try to log in, guys. The power user is going to show really cool features about how he has used Arnold for his design viz output. So in case if you have your friends who are using 3ds Max and other renderers, and they are thinking about Arnold, please share share the invites with them as well. And I hope to see a lot of you guys as well as design visualization guys for that session. Cool, Varun and Abhishek, we will definitely look into it. Thanks, Nitin. The last poll question for today. Hey Harish, I saw your question. Well, what I can do is the best thing is I can give, because it's a very simpler tool, and the basic one. I can share a link to you personally on how do you do that. I think that should help you, Harish. Cool. All right, so I think we are done with all our poll questions. With that, I would like to thank all of you guys for staying back and attending today's session. I hope it was useful. And once again, thanks Devjot for sharing this image. If in case if you guys are experimenting with Maya, Arnold, 3ds Max, and if you have some beautiful imageries you would like others to have a look at, comment it, you can go to the area.autodesk.com and submit your jobs. Create a login where area has tons of resources. It is for learning as well as for sharing. And we also have a lot of customer case studies on the area.com. So guys, please log into area as well, be very active. And if you feel you want to share your work, please do that. So with that, I would like to finish this session for today. And all of you guys, thank you so much for being there till the end, and hope to see you guys soon. So keep safe, be safe, and take care.